We treat death like something to hide. We don't talk about it. We think ignoring it is a kind of strength. But there's an old philosophy that says the opposite. Seneca, a Stoic, wrote a letter. He said, "It's not that life is short, but that we waste so much of it." He believed remembering death isn't morbid. He thought it was the secret to a life that feels full. That's the practice of Memento Mori. Remember you must die, and I want to look at how that dark thought can be a tool. It makes you present. It takes away small worries and shows you what matters. It can give you a sense of freedom. By the end, you'll have a way to use this old idea to change how you feel each day. How does knowing it ends make the beginning more alive? The Stoics remembered death, but not in a morbid way. For them, it was the first step toward living discipline, a kind of mental exercise. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, he had one of the most demanding lives you could imagine, and he started his private journal with this practice. He wrote reminders to himself. Not with fear, but with a kind of clear-eyed acceptance. He saw death as just part of the natural cycle, like a piece of fruit ripe falling from a branch. To fear that end, he reflected, is to fear the very process that gives life its shape, that gives it its urgency. Their approach was rational. It was preparatory. It asked one simple question: if this day were my last, would I be proud of how I spent it? That's so different from how we usually handle it. We treat it like a distant shadow. We refuse to look at it until it's right there in front of us. The Stoics chose to look directly, to make it familiar, so its power to create panic or regret, that power would just vanish. And in doing that, they turned a source of anxiety into a source of clarity. You can see a modern version of this. There's a practice called the pre-mortem. Teams use it in business, in planning. Before they launch a project, they imagine it has already failed completely. They ask what went wrong. That clear-eyed look at a potential ending lets them spot risks. It lets them make better decisions from the very start. That's the Stoic spirit of Memento Mori in action. It's not a fearful end. It's a tool for sharper beginnings. More purposeful ones. So then consider this. Where in your own life would a gentle awareness of limited time, where would it immediately shift your priorities? What one conversation, what one project, one small act of courage, what would move from the list of someday to the reality of today? If you found out you had 1 year left to live, what would you stop doing right now? That question, it's not really about planning a year. It's a filter. It cuts through the noise all at once. That finite time, that clock ticking, it forces a brutal honesty. The kind we usually avoid. It clarifies things. The argument you're rehearsing in your head over some small slight, it just becomes pointless, the endless scrolling. The worry about what strangers think, chasing things to impress people you don't even like, all of it loses its grip. Mortality is a lens. It brings what's essential into sharp focus and makes everything else look blurry, out of place. The Stoics called the essential things virtues: courage, justice, wisdom, temperance. We might call them our core values. Our deepest relationships, a sense of growth, of contribution, and the superficial, that's all the rest, the status games, the petty grievances, the mindless consumption that fills time but leaves you empty. Seneca saw this clearly. In his letter on the shortness of life, he writes that we aren't given a short life. We make it short. We don't lack time, we waste it. He saw people giving their time, their life, to pointless pursuits, to pleasing others, to chasing things that won't matter in the end. He said we're tight-fisted with money, but reckless with time. The one thing you can't get back, that's the clarification. When you remember you have to die, you start to audit your life with new eyes. You measure your days not by productivity, but by purpose. Not by busyness, but by meaning. We see this happen in life. We just wish the catalyst were gentler. someone gets a serious diagnosis, and in its wake they find a strange clarity. They leave a career that was draining their spirit. They reach out to mend a broken relationship because the grudge isn't worth the lost connection. The focus isn't on the medical challenge, it's on the shift in perspective it triggers. The trivial falls away, and what remains is what was always true. What was always important, it was just buried under the clutter of everyday living. So here's a simple prompt, a way to use this filter without a crisis. Take a moment, write down your top 3 values, just 3 words or phrases. What principles should guide your life? Then look back at yesterday, your actions, your conversations, your choices. How did they align with those values? Did your time reflect what you say matters most? This isn't about guilt, it's about information, using the idea of a limit to start building a life that feels limitless. Because it's finally, authentically your own. Procrastination steals time, and Memento Mori is the alarm. It breaks that comfortable idea that we have endless tomorrows. That idea is what lets us say we'll start tomorrow, apologize next week, chase the dream when things settle. The Stoics saw time clearly, the past is gone. The future isn't certain, the present, this breath, is the only piece of time we actually own. To delay living fully, to put off what matters, is a gamble with your only real currency. Epictetus said it bluntly, you are not a body waiting for a soul. You are not a soul waiting for a life. You are alive now. He told his students to stop waiting for a signal to begin. He said begin at once. To live is to act. To postpone action is to postpone life. This isn't frantic hustle. It's a quiet, rational urgency. If later isn't guaranteed, then the logical thing, the respectful thing, is to honor what's important today. Not in some vague future, in the hours right in front of you. Think of it like a letter, an important letter full of meaning. You leave it on your desk. You think you'll get to it when you have a large, perfect block of time, but that block never comes. Days become weeks. Memento Mori is realizing the post office closes. There's a final pickup time. That awareness doesn't have to cause panic. It just makes you sit down and write the letter now with the time you have. The project you've planned, the skill you want to learn, the difficult conversation you're avoiding, these are your letters, and the post office is always closer to closing than we think. So here's a direct application, a way to turn this into motion before this ends. Choose one thing, one meaningful task you've been putting off. It could be an email to reconnect, a first sketch for an idea, scheduling that appointment you've delayed. Don't make a plan to do it later. The moment you finish listening, take the very first, smallest step. Open the blank document, pick up the phone, write the first sentence. Use the gentle reminder of life's limit not as a weight, but as fuel. It's the energy that turns intention into action. So let me ask you, what's one meaningful project you've been putting off that you could take the first small step on today? Notice the light in the room, the feel of your breath. These moments are fleeting, and a life is made of them. When you hold the idea of an ending gently, something shifts. It doesn't pull you into worry about the future. It anchors you more deeply in the now. This is where Memento Mori meets mindfulness. It's knowing that because this moment won't last, this sensation, this conversation, it becomes infinitely more precious. It becomes worthy of your full attention. The Stoics called this a key to eudaimonia, that deep flourishing. It wasn't about chasing pleasure. It was about finding a profound richness in ordinary life, precisely because it's temporary. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He reminded himself not to just go through the motions, but to truly perceive the world as he moved through it. He spoke of appreciating the banquet of life before the table is taken away. He didn't mean a literal feast. He meant the simple, available beauty of existence, the warmth of the sun after a cold morning, the sound of laughter, the taste of a meal. He knew that to sleepwalk through these experiences, to be mentally elsewhere while you're physically here, that's a kind of theft. You're stealing vivid life from yourself. There's a simple way to practice this. In an ordinary, pleasant moment, mentally note to yourself, this could be the last time. Not with dread, but with a soft, appreciative focus. The last time you hear your child's laughter at that exact pitch. The last time you see this particular tree in full autumn color. The last time you share a quiet morning coffee before life's rhythms change. This thought doesn't diminish the moment, it consecrates it. It pulls you out of your head and into your senses. You stop thinking about what's next and you fully inhabit what is. So here's an invitation. Sometime today, set aside 5 minutes. Choose a simple activity. Making and drinking a cup of tea, feeling the breeze from an open window, listening to a piece of music you love. For those 5 minutes, commit your entire attention to it. Notice the details you normally rush past, the steam rising from the cup, the shifting shadows, the specific notes in the melody. Observe what happens. Does time seem to slow down? Does the experience feel richer, more layered? This is the gift of presence, unlocked by the quiet awareness of impermanence. It turns mundane routines into small ceremonies, and it begins to build a life that doesn't just pass by, but is truly, deeply lived. What if the final deadline, the one we all face, could actually free you from all the smaller fears? It's a shift. When you really accept the one outcome, you can't change the fact that life ends, it starts to shrink everything else. The fear of a project failing, of being rejected, of losing money. It puts them in a different category. The Stoics had a tool for this. They called it the dichotomy of control. They split the world into two kinds of things. Things that are up to us and things that are not. Our judgments, our intentions, our efforts, our character. Those are up to us. Everything else, the weather, other people's opinions, how our projects turn out, those are not. And they called those external things indifference. Not because they don't matter, but because our peace shouldn't depend on them. Death is the ultimate indifferent. The most certain external event there is. Making peace with that is practice for making peace with all the smaller uncertainties. Epictetus put it clearly. He said, work within your sphere. Your job is to play your part well. Whether you get a big role or a small one, that's not your choice. Your job is to act that role with excellence. He told his students to focus completely on their own choices and actions, on the quality of their effort, to let go of the result, which always depends on things outside their will. Think of a speaker who's anxious. Their mind is stuck on external outcomes. Will the audience like me? Will they clap? What if I forget my line? That focus on what they can't control creates tension. A stiff performance. Now imagine that speaker grounded in the idea of mortality. They have a deeper perspective. They focus on what is within their control. Delivering their message with sincerity, sharing the idea they believe in, serving the audience with their full attention. The performance might look the same, but the experience is completely different. It's free from the weight of needing approval. The outcome, the applause or the silence, becomes information, not a verdict on their worth. That's the liberation. When you stop tying your sense of self to things you can't command, you find a steadier confidence. It's the confidence of a craftsman who finds joy in the work itself, not just the praise it might get. So here's a practical step, a way to use this old filter on a modern worry. Bring to mind one thing that's making you anxious right now. A work presentation, a hard conversation, a money problem. Now take a moment to sort it. What part of this is truly within your power to influence? Is it your preparation, your honesty, your effort, your attitude? Write those things down, and what part is outside your control? Other people's reactions, the final decision, market conditions, unpredictable events. Acknowledge those, then consciously let go of your mental grip on them. Your task, your only task, is to tend to the first list. This practice doesn't make the challenge go away. It just returns your energy to where it can actually do something, and in doing that, it turns anxiety into purposeful action. The emperors who built monuments are dust. So are the commoners they ruled. Memento Mori is a leveler. It's a quiet truth. It humbles the most inflated ego. We spend so much energy building our importance, our legacy, our story. But death reminds us we're a single note in a song that started long before us and will continue long after. The Stoics had a view for this: cosmopolitanism. It means seeing yourself not as the center of the universe, but as a citizen of it, a small part of a vast, interconnected whole. Your personal dramas, your triumphs and embarrassments, they aren't the main event. They're passing weather in a much larger sky. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in his world. He returned to this thought constantly to ground himself. He wrote in his private journal, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and soon all things will have forgotten you." He wasn't being bleak. He was practicing a profound humility. He was reminding himself that the applause, the criticism, the marble statues, none of it had lasting substance. All of it would be reclaimed by time. That realization didn't make his work pointless. It purified his motivation. It meant he could act from service and principle, not from a hunger for fame. A hunger that would turn to dust. This is the antidote to vanity. When you know your chapter is brief, you stop trying to write yourself as the hero of every page. You become more interested in the story itself, in how you can contribute to its quality, not just in securing your own footnote. Think about a moment from your own past. A social embarrassment that felt world-ending, a professional achievement you were incredibly proud of. From the distance of 5 or 10 years, how does it feel now? The sharp edges have softened, the intense emotion has faded. The event is just a part of your history, not the definition of it. That's the perspective Memento Mori offers you in the present. It lets you step back from the fever of now, to see your current worries, your current pride, with that same gentle distance. It shrinks the ego not by diminishing you, but by expanding your context. You are part of a human story millennia old. Your life is a gift of participation in that story. This shift fosters a natural compassion too. If everyone is facing the same ultimate condition, then the person who cut you off in traffic, the colleague who disagreed with you, they are just fellow travelers. On the same brief road, their drama is as transient as yours. So here's a reflective prompt, a way to invite that humility in. Consider a current source of your self-importance. It might be a resentment you're nursing, a need to be right in an argument, or a pride in a status you've achieved. Now, gently try on a new perspective. Look at this from the imagined viewpoint of your 90-year-old future self. From that place of long experience, looking back over a full life, how significant does this current concern appear? What advice might that wiser, older you offer about where to place your energy and care today? The goal isn't to make your life feel small, but to make your heart feel spacious enough to hold it all with a lighter, more generous grip. Once you accept the end, there's not much left to be afraid of. That's where Stoic courage comes from. It's not about having no fear. It's about adjusting your view so other problems seem smaller. The Stoics had an exercise for this. They called it the premeditation of evils. It sounds grim, but the point is to build resilience, to build light. You deliberately think about possible hardships, not to worry, to rehearse your calm, to see them clearly, and in seeing them, you take away their power to shock you. If you regularly consider the ultimate loss, you protect yourself from panicking over smaller ones. Seneca wrote about this. In his letters, he told his friend Lucilius to spend time each day thinking about everything that could go wrong, not to live in misery, but to practice saying to each one, "You are only what I thought you would be." He believed that by rehearsing misfortune in our minds, we make the soul stronger. We find out we can endure far more than our anxiety says we can. The goal is to move the event from the terrifying unknown into the familiar, into the manageable. It's like a fire drill. You don't practice because you want a fire. You practice so that if the alarm goes off, your response is calm, clear, effective. Not paralyzed, your mind already knows the path. Take a common modern fear, public speaking. The anxiety usually spins around a catastrophic fantasy. I'll forget my words, people will laugh, I'll be humiliated. The premeditation practice asks you to walk right up to that fantasy, to accept it. Okay, what if I do forget my lines? I might pause, take a breath, glance at my notes. The audience will wait. What if someone laughs? That's a reaction, it passes. What's the actual, realistic worst outcome? In the context of a full and finite lifetime, how significant is this 5-minute stumble? When you hold it next to the idea of a whole life, its weight changes. It becomes a moment, not a definition. That's how thinking about the ultimate end fuels everyday courage. It gives you a baseline of acceptance. From that solid ground, other fears lose their absolute authority. They become difficulties to navigate, not abysses to avoid. So here's a direct challenge, a way to use this ancient drill. Name one specific fear you're carrying right now. It could be about a conversation, a financial risk, a creative project. Now, consciously and calmly accept the worst realistic outcome, not a fantasy disaster. The genuine, sober worst case. Sit with that accepted outcome for a moment. Notice what happens in your body and mind. Does the anxiety spike and then settle? Does the monster, once you look it in the eye, seem a bit smaller? Often you'll find the fear of the thing is a swirling cloud of dread, but the thing itself, even at its worst, is a series of specific, manageable steps. By making peace with the end of the story, you free up immense energy to write the middle chapters with more boldness, because you know you can handle whatever the plot brings. We don't value light until we've been in the dark. That's what Memento Mori does. It creates the contrast. It's the quiet background that makes the foreground stand out. When you hold the idea of loss gently in your mind, the things you have stopped being ordinary. They become gifts. And that feeling, that deep appreciation, the Stoics saw that as a cornerstone of the good life. Seneca wrote about this. He told his friend to enjoy present blessings while you have them, to treat every possession, every friendship, every day of health like it's a loan. Something you've been entrusted with, something that could be called back at any time. That possibility of absence, he said, isn't a reason for anxiety. It's what makes the possession precious. It's what turns having into cherishing. He suggested we say to ourselves, fortune has given this to me for now. I'll enjoy it fully and I'll hold it loosely, ready to give it back without complaint. That mindset doesn't create a fearful grip. It creates a grateful, open-handed reception. You stop taking things for granted. You see their temporary nature not as a threat but as a feature of their value. Think of a common experience. You only notice the comfort of a quiet home when the power goes out. When the hum of appliances stops, that silence makes you aware of the peace you usually live in without thought. Or a relationship, we get used to someone's presence. It's the potential of their absence, even a small trip, that often sharpens our affection, makes us express it more openly. Memento Mori is applying that gentle awareness to the whole of life. It's letting the thought of the eventual farewell make every hello sweeter. A simple way to cultivate this is a nightly practice, not just a standard gratitude list, but one framed by this Stoic insight. As you reflect on your day, ask yourself, what did I experience today that I would genuinely miss if it were gone? It might be the physical comfort of a warm bed, the mental stimulation of a good conversation, the mundane luxury of running water, the reliable presence of a partner reading next to you. Naming these things with the conscious understanding of their fragility changes the exercise. It moves it from noting nice things to feeling a profound thankfulness for the very fabric of your existence. So here's a prompt. Before today ends, choose one person in your life. Someone whose presence you sometimes overlook because it's so constant. Your mind might go to a parent, a partner, a close friend, a supportive colleague. Take a quiet moment, mentally thank them. Do it as if this were your last possible chance to convey that gratitude. Don't plan a grand speech. Just hold the feeling of appreciation for who they are and what they've brought to your journey. Notice how that mental shift, inspired by a limit, actually expands your heart. It fills the present moment with a quality of connection that feels, in the truest sense, limitless. Life is a lease, not a deed. Memento Mori tells us we're just tenants. We walk around with this belief that we own our things, our roles, our relationships. That they're permanent, but the Stoics saw that as an illusion, a source of anxiety. They proposed a shift. See everything as a temporary loan from the cosmos itself. Your health, your career, your home, the people you love, they're all gifts entrusted to you for an unspecified period. And this isn't a cold view, it's the opposite. It lets you cherish things fully without being destroyed by the fear of losing them. Epictetus, who started in hardship, put it clearly. He told his students to never say, "I have lost it." Instead, say, "I have given it back." Did your child pass away? You gave them back. Did your partner leave? You gave them back. Was your property taken? You gave it back. That reframing dissolves the story of theft and victimhood. It puts you back in the flow of nature, where all things are on loan and all things are returned. The suffering comes not from the loss, but from our belief that it was ours to keep forever. Take a modern example, losing a job you identified with. The immediate story is one of loss, of failure, of something taken. The Stoic practice asks us to pause that, to see the role, the income, the status, as something on loan to you for a season. It served a purpose, it taught you lessons, and now the cosmos or fate or just life-changing is asking for it back. That doesn't negate the difficulty or the practical stress. But it changes the emotional charge. It moves you from "why is this happening to me" to "this was never mine to begin with. How can I return it with grace and look for what's next?" This applies to the most intimate level. We even speak of owning our own bodies, but your body is the ultimate loan. You did nothing to earn it. You will have no choice but to return it. Knowing this can transform how you treat it, not as a permanent possession to exploit or resent, but as a temporary vessel to care for and honor during your brief tenure. So here's a reflective prompt. Take a moment, list 3 things you feel you truly own: your car, your professional title, a cherished relationship, your fitness. Now, beside each one, consciously reframe it. Write, "I am the current steward of this gift. It is on loan to me. My task is to care for it well and appreciate it fully, knowing it is not mine to keep forever." Feel the subtle shift. The anxiety of clutching relaxes. A deeper, more peaceful gratitude can take its place. When you stop trying to hold the river in your hands, you can finally enjoy the feel of the water flowing through your fingers. On your last day, will you look back and wish you'd been more comfortable or more courageous? That question cuts through everything. It gets to what the Stoics believed was the core truth. Life has a clear end, so the only rational thing to build is your character, your virtue, and for them, virtue wasn't about sainthood, it was excellence of character. It was the only real good, the only thing that's truly yours, that can't be taken by circumstance or loss or even death. Everything else, wealth, reputation, health, relationships, these were preferred indifference. Good to have, but not the source of a good life. The source was always inside. Marcus Aurelius wrote this to himself very clearly. He said the only thing not subject to obstruction is our own mind. Our judgment and character. He meant the world can take your possessions, your status, your body, but it can't force you to give up your integrity. It can't make you cruel if you choose kindness. It can't make you a coward if you choose courage. Your character is the final frontier, the only thing you ever completely own. Mortality makes cultivating that internal good the most urgent work. Because when everything else is stripped away, that's what's left. That's the legacy you carry. Think of a practical choice. You're at work. You see a colleague being blamed unfairly for a team mistake. The comfortable path is to stay silent, avoid the conflict, protect your own standing. The path of integrity, the virtuous path, is harder. It needs courage to speak up, justice to correct the record, wisdom to do it constructively. In the moment, comfort is seductive. It promises peace, but the long-term satisfaction, the wholeness, belongs to the person who chose the harder right over the easier wrong. That choice builds a self-respect no external comfort can match. It's the difference between a life of pleasant distractions and a life of deep substance. The Stoic goal was to make that choice of virtue reflexive, to train your character so that in the moment you don't even see the comfortable compromise as an option. You just act from principle because you know your time to practice being who you want to be is finite. So here's a challenge. Look at the next 24 hours. Find one specific situation where you'll face a choice between the comfortable path and the virtuous one. Maybe a small, awkward truth you need to tell. A commitment to keep when you're tired. A moment to offer kindness instead of indifference. Don't just note it. Make a quiet promise to yourself. When that moment comes, you'll choose the path that strengthens your character, not just cushions your comfort. See what it feels like to live, even for a day, as if your character is the only project that matters, because in the longest view it is. Philosophy is useless unless you practice it. You need to weave that reminder into your day, not as a heavy thought to dwell on, but as a touchstone, a brief pause that reorients you. It's about consistency, not how long you spend. A minute of clear focus is stronger than an hour of anxious brooding. The Stoics knew this. They made reflection a daily habit. Seneca had advice for this. He said to live each day as if it were a complete life, a whole journey in miniature, with its own dawn, its own work, its own evening rest, to go to sleep feeling the day was a full and worthy life itself. That's the core of a daily memento mori. It's not about counting down days with dread. It's about making each day count as its own story. So what do these small rituals look like now? One is a morning meditation before the noise starts. As you have your first drink, just hold the thought. This day is not a given. It's a gift, an entire lifetime in these next hours. How will I spend it? Another is a symbolic object, a stone on your desk, a coin in your pocket, a private signal. When you see it or touch it, let it ask one question. Am I acting on what matters right now, or am I distracted by what doesn't? A silent nudge back to presence. Then there's the nightly review. The Stoics called it the evening examination. As you get ready to sleep, ask a version of that core question. If today were my last, would I be content with how I lived it? Not perfect, but content. Did I act with integrity? Did I offer kindness? Did I engage fully with my work and my people? This isn't for self-criticism, it's for gentle course correction. It gathers the day's lessons so you can use them tomorrow. The power is in the repetition. The daily return to the question. It's like setting a compass. You check it often not because you're lost, but to make sure you're still heading the way you chose. So here's an invitation, a step from thought to action. Look at the examples, the morning acknowledgement, the symbolic object, the nightly review. Choose just one. The one that feels most natural, most doable for you. Commit to trying it sincerely for the next 3 days. Don't overcomplicate it. The ritual is just the container. The real change happens in the quiet moment of awareness it creates. Notice what shifts. Does a small frustration seem smaller? Does a moment of connection feel richer? This is how theory becomes lived wisdom. It's how remembering an end begins to build a more limitless now. We all carry a list of regrets, and Memento Mori, it doesn't wipe that list clean. It just hands you a pen so you can write something new. That list, the things we wish we'd done, the time we feel is gone, it gets heavy. It can turn into a story about where we failed. But the Stoics, they saw that as a mistake, a misuse. The past to them was outside our control. It's fixed, it's done. What we control is how we see it now. And what we do next, regret, if you look at it, is just data. It's information. It tells you what you care about. That feeling, I should have said something, that's data. It points to courage. I should have visited more. That's data. It points to connection. The regret isn't a prison sentence. It's a sign. It shows you your values by showing you where you came up short. Seneca wrote about this. He said, we aren't given a short life. We make it short. We waste it. But then he makes the turn. He asked, why cry over parts of life? The whole thing deserves tears. He wasn't being dark. He was saying the loss is everywhere. The real mistake is to see time wasted and then waste more time by regretting it. He wrote that we can't get the losses back, but we can stop making new ones. That's the shift. You take the energy from the regret and you point it somewhere else. You use it not to blame who you were, but to teach who you are now. So how does that work? Let's try something. Just a quick exercise. First, pick one regret. Make it specific, simple, maybe a hobby you never started, a friend you lost touch with, an idea you dropped because you were scared. Hold it lightly. Then pull out the lesson. Ask what this regret says you value. If it's the dropped idea, maybe you value making things, seeing things through. If it's the friend, you probably value real connection. Then turn that lesson into one small thing you can do this week. Not a big plan, a tiny step. If it's connection, send a text, just a short one. I was thinking of you. Hope you're okay. If it's making things, spend 10 minutes drawing or write 3 lines. The action is small, but what it means isn't. It's you saying to yourself that you learn from the data. You're using the knowledge of lost time not to feel guilty, but to move a different way. So try that now. Pick the regret, find the lesson, choose the one small step. That step is the first line of a new page, written with that pen you were given. Knowing any conversation could be the last one changes how you talk. It changes your priorities in a practical sense. That's the social side of remembering death. It moves the focus off of you onto the space between people. The Stoics considered this part of justice, not law, but relational justice, treating people with the fairness and dignity they deserve as humans on the same short trip. When you carry that awareness, it's harder to stay angry over little things, easier to offer kindness you might have saved because later is fragile. Marcus Aurelius wrote notes to himself about this, dealing with difficult people. He'd say, the people you meet today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. But he didn't stop there. He asked a question. I've seen the nature of good and bad. The wrongdoer has a nature related to mine. Not the same blood, but the same mind, a piece of the divine. So they can't hurt me. No one can drag me into ugliness. I can't be angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together. And then he ended with the final thing. He said, soon we will all be resting, so why be agitated? That resting place, that shared end, was his tool for patience. It wasn't ignoring their faults. It was seeing them inside a bigger, more compassionate frame. Their drama, their rudeness, their fear is as temporary as your reaction to it. You're both actors in a play that's ending soon. That awareness builds a deep, practical empathy. It helps you to escalate not from weakness, but from wisdom. You choose not to spend your limited energy on battles that, in the long view, mean almost nothing. Take a common frustration. You're in a long line. The person ahead is arguing with a clerk over a small rule. Your instinct is irritation, impatience. Maybe judgment. Now apply that pause, that mental reminder. This person, like me, is mortal. They have their own story, their own fears, their own limited time, which they're spending distressed over a small thing. That shift doesn't fix their problem, but it changes your internal experience completely. Your irritation softens into a kind of detached compassion. You're free from the emotional hook. You can wait in peace. This practice is stronger in close relationships, with a partner, a parent, a friend. We often postpone the important words. We assume there will be time for the apology, the thank you, the difficult talk. We let small resentments build because addressing them is uncomfortable now. But if you really absorb that this interaction isn't guaranteed, it changes your math. The temporary discomfort of speaking honestly becomes far less important than the permanent regret of silence. So here's a simple practice. This week, pick one relationship that could use more light. Maybe it's grown distant or there's a minor, unspoken tension. Your task isn't to fix everything at once. It's to do one deliberate act of relational justice. It could be expressing a specific appreciation you've left unsaid. It could be offering a clear forgiveness for a past hurt without rehashing the details. Or it could just be starting a conversation with the sole goal of listening, not preparing your reply. Do it with the quiet understanding that this isn't a rehearsal. This is the performance. Notice how that awareness of a shared, finite journey changes the quality of your presence. It turns an ordinary moment into an act of profound human connection. Stoicism isn't about looking inward forever. A limitless life is tied to something bigger than yourself. That's the final turn of Memento Mori. It shifts the question from what you can take from life to what you can give back. The Stoics called that living in accordance with nature. But they meant something specific. Nature was this vast, intelligent system, everything connected, and for a human, our nature is to be rational, to be social, to use our reason for the common good, so our finite time becomes about service. What mark of care will you leave on the world after you're gone? And it's not about fame. Not about monuments, it's about the quality of your contribution, the ripple of your virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this duty in his private notes. He told himself at dawn when it's hard to get up, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. What is there to complain about if I'm going to do what I was born for? The work I was brought here to do, or was I created to huddle under blankets, to stay warm? He saw his purpose not as emperor, but as a human. His work was to contribute, to act justly, to serve the common good. That's the legacy that outlives the person. It's built through actions, not accolades. Take a simple example. Mentorship, sharing your knowledge and time with someone starting out. You won't be remembered for every piece of advice, but the encouragement you offer, the belief you instill, that becomes part of their story. It shapes their character, and they might pass that forward. Your influence echoes in ways you'll never see. Or creative work, a piece of writing, a song, a garden you tend. These are offerings. They're put into the world as gifts. They might inspire someone or comfort them long after you've stepped away. Even a simple act like picking up litter in a park, it's a statement. It says, I care for this place. Not just for me, but for those who come after. It's a small stitch in the fabric of a shared world. So here's a way to make it personal, a reflective prompt. Take a moment, define what contribution means to you right now in this chapter. It doesn't have to be monumental. Contribution can be the patience you show as a parent, building a foundation of security. It can be the integrity you bring to your work, making a system more honest. It can be the kindness you extend to a stranger, making your corner of the world slightly softer. Now, identify one small, concrete way to act on that. This week, could you offer genuine encouragement to a colleague? Could you volunteer an hour for a cause? Could you create something, however small, and share it freely? That action is your legacy in motion. It's how you step beyond the self into a life that feels limitless because it's woven into the ongoing story of everything. This body ages, it changes, and it will stop. That fact changes how you treat it now. The Stoics had a radical view. They saw the body as external, a preferred indifferent. It was a tool, a vessel for the journey, but it wasn't the source of your identity. It wasn't your worth. Epictetus drew that line with an image. He compared the body to a donkey. You're given a donkey for a trip. Your job is to care for it. Feed it, keep it strong enough to carry you to the destination. But you are not the donkey, you're the traveler. The donkey is the vehicle, your temporary means of moving through the world. That perspective corrects our modern extremes. On one side, we obsess over the body. We worship its appearance. We fear every sign of age. We tie our self-esteem to its form. On the other side, we neglect it. We ignore its needs. We treat it poorly, as if it's separate from the life we want. Both mistakes come from the same belief. Believing the body is the self, Memento Mori suggests a middle path, respectful stewardship. Knowing the vessel is temporary doesn't mean you abuse it. It means you maintain it with clear purpose, so it can serve you well for as long as the journey lasts. That shifts the motivation for health. You don't exercise out of vanity. To chase an impossible ideal of youth, you move your body as a duty to keep the vessel strong, so you have the energy to do your work, to play with your children. To engage with life, you don't eat well out of fear or as punishment. You nourish the vessel with respect, so your mind is clear, so your spirit is steady. It's maintenance, not worship. It's care, not obsession. Think of a craftsman and their tools. A woodcarver doesn't neglect their chisels. They keep them sharp. They keep them clean and oiled, not because the chisel is the art, but because a dull, rusty tool makes the art impossible to create. The body is your primary tool for creating a life. Death reminds you it has a finite warranty. That awareness invites a gentle, consistent care. So a simple application. Today, perform one act of care for your physical vessel. Frame it not as a chore, not as a step toward a superficial goal. Frame it as maintenance. Take a 20-minute walk, not to burn calories, but to lubricate the joints and clear the mind. Choose a meal that truly nourishes, not to fit into old clothes, but to fuel the system that carries you through your day. Drink a glass of water with the thought that you are hydrating the vehicle. In that small, conscious act, you honor the temporary gift of your physical form. You treat it not as an idol to be perfected, nor as an enemy to be subdued, but as a trusted companion on a remarkable, finite journey. Perfectionism is the enemy of done, and a finite life requires things to be done. That drive for flawlessness can feel noble. But under mortality, it looks different. It looks like paralysis, a way of stalling. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll wait forever. The Stoics saw action as a virtue. They valued progress, not a final, flawless state. Seneca wrote about this. He said, "Put things off no longer." He told his friend to begin at once to live and to count each day as a separate life. The greatest obstacle to living, he argued, is expectancy. Expectancy depends upon tomorrow and wastes today. You can arrange what lies in fortune's control, but you must act on what lies in yours. What's in your control is the choice to begin with the materials you have right now, not the ideal materials you wish you had. The perfect time, the perfect skill, the perfect plan, these are illusions. They're excuses dressed up as standards. The present moment, with all its flaws, is the only raw material you're ever guaranteed. Think of an artist with a blank canvas. They could wait for perfect inspiration, for the mastery to execute the vision without error. They could spend years in preparation, but if they never put brush to canvas, they've created nothing. The work that changes someone, that starts a conversation, is the one that gets released. It might have rough edges, the colors might be off, but it exists. It contributes, it's done. The same is true for any meaningful project. The messy book draft, the unpolished business idea, the difficult conversation that won't be scripted perfectly. Waiting for perfection is a silent agreement to never ship, to never share, to never truly live that part of your potential. The awareness of finite time cuts through that. It asks a practical question. Would you rather have a perfect plan that never leaves your notebook, or a good enough project that actually touches the world? The latter is how life is built, not in a single, monumental, perfect act, but through a series of completed, imperfect efforts, each one teaching you something for the next. So here's a way to move from paralysis to motion. Identify one project right now where good enough and complete would be better than perfect and unfinished. It might be a work presentation you're over-preparing, a creative piece you're afraid to share, a home project you won't start because you can't do it flawlessly. Name it, then define what good enough actually means for this. Set a clear, modest definition of completion and give yourself a firm deadline, not for perfection but for shipping, for calling it done. When you release that need for the outcome to be impeccable, you free up an enormous amount of energy. Energy you can then pour into the next beginning, because a life of meaning isn't a gallery of perfect statues. It's a workshop, always active, full of completed works. Works that show the honest marks of effort and growth. Money is a tool, one of the most powerful tools we have, but we forget that. We start to treat it like the score. Like the goal itself, the Stoics saw this. Seneca watched the wealthy in Rome. They chased more and more, not for a purpose, just to have it. He wrote that wealth is the slave of a wise man, the master of a fool. It's about use. For a wise person, money serves. It buys security. It creates space for growth, for contribution. For the person who worships it, money becomes the master. It dictates their anxiety. It shrinks their life down to the pursuit of having, not living. Its value is in its use, and we have a limited time to use it. A stack of gold in a vault does nothing. That same gold, used to ensure your family's well-being, to support a cause, to buy time to learn something that brings you joy, that gold is part of a good life. It's been translated from a symbol into an action. That's the mortal lens. It asks, what is this money for in the time I have? It shifts things from an abstract game of accumulation to a concrete plan. A plan for a meaningful life. You can see two approaches. One is driven by anxiety, an infinite future anxiety. It's the mindset of hoarding, of never feeling secure enough. Postponing all enjoyment, all generosity for a perfect future that never arrives. Every decision is filtered through fear of scarcity, of running out. The second approach uses money as a tool for a virtuous life. That means investing in security, yes, but it also means using resources to buy time. Taking a course that changes your career, hiring help for a task to free up hours for family. It means allocating funds for meaningful memories, a trip that deepens a relationship rather than another luxury item. An item that loses its shine in a month. The difference isn't between saving and spending. It's between fear and intention. One is a reaction to an imagined, endless future of lack. The other is a choice, a conscious choice about how to deploy a finite resource to support what you truly care about now. So here's a way to bring this to your own ledger. Look back at one recent financial decision, a significant purchase, an investment, or even a routine choice like a premium option at the grocery store. Ask yourself honestly, was this driven by a core value, health, learning, family connection, generosity, or was it driven by an unexamined fear, a fear of missing out? A need to project an image, a reflexive anxiety about not having enough. There's no right or wrong answer. This is an audit of alignment. The goal is to see the story your money is telling. Is it a story of fear looping on repeat, or is it a story of your values actively being built? When you remember your time is not infinite, your opportunity to use your resources is not infinite, that clarity can change things. It can turn finance from a source of stress into a practical tool, a tool for building the life you want. Every ending is a reminder of our own end, a small lesson in letting go. We usually see endings as failures, something to fight against, but the Stoics didn't see it that way. They saw it as the natural rhythm. Marcus Aurelius thought about this. He wrote that everything exists for a time, like fruit. It hangs on the branch and then it falls. That fall makes room for new growth. To resist that cycle is to fight nature. And that's where our suffering comes from. When you start to see every ending as part of that rhythm, you stop suffering it. You complete the experience instead. You turn a loss into a closure, into a kind of respect. Think about finishing a great book. You close the cover. There's that quiet feeling. The story is over. The world you lived in is now a memory. That feeling isn't just sad. It's rich. It's full. It's the feeling of completion. You don't fight the last page. You sit with it, you let it settle, and that's a rehearsal, a gentle practice in accepting an end. Now take that to bigger things, the end of a big project. The last day in a home you loved, a friendship that's run its course. These aren't failures, they're completions. The pain comes from our clenched fist. From refusing to let the season pass. You can practice this with the smallest moments. The end of a workday. Instead of rushing away, take a minute, acknowledge it's done. Say, the work of this day is finished. What's left can wait for tomorrow. This chapter is written, or the end of a meal. Pause for a breath, acknowledge the nourishment. The moment of peace, that tiny ritual trains the mind. It builds the muscle of acceptance, so when a bigger ending comes, you're not starting from zero. You know the shape of letting go, so here's something to try. Before today ends, pick one small conclusion: finishing your coffee, completing a chore you've avoided. As you finish, don't just move on. Stop for 15 seconds. Mark the moment. Say, this task is complete. This moment is now a memory. Do it with gratitude. Not for the thing, but for the act of completion, for ending well. Notice the shift in that pause. You're not running from an end. You're honoring a cycle. And you're rehearsing with a quiet wisdom for all the letting go a full life will ever ask of you. The blank page feels different when you know there are only so many pages left in the book. That finite space changes things for a creator. It turns a deadline from something that causes anxiety into something that gives you energy. It becomes a reason to start. The Stoic practice of remembering our end, it confronts that great creative enemy, the illusion of infinite tomorrows. That illusion tells you you can always start later, that you need more preparation, that your voice isn't ready yet. Mortality silences that. It says your perspective, your unique way of seeing the world, is a temporary gift. It has to be used, it has to be shared, not for fame, but because contribution is part of a life well lived. To hold back your creative work is to hold back a piece of your humanity from the shared human conversation. The Roman Stoics understood this call to action. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to do the work of a human being. He wrote, "Do every act of your life as if it were your last." For a creative person, that means treating each session, each sketch, each sentence with that kind of focus and intention. Not because it has to be perfect, but because it might be your final chance to put that particular idea into the world. The Stoic focus was always on the effort, on the act itself, not the reception. Epictetus told his students to concentrate on their own work, on playing their part well, and to leave the outcome to nature. That's liberating for an artist. Your job is to show up, to engage with the work honestly, and to complete it. The applause, the criticism, the obscurity, those aren't within your control. But the act of creation, of putting your truth into a form others can experience, that is entirely yours. History has many prolific figures whose sense of mission was tied to time. Composers who wrote symphonies knowing their health was fading. Writers who treated their daily page count as a non-negotiable duty. Their drive wasn't about manic production. It was a clear understanding that their window for contribution was finite. They focused on output, on the legacy of the work itself, rather than being paralyzed by needing each piece to be a timeless masterpiece. This mindset values volume of practice and courage of expression over fragile perfectionism. It's the difference between writing one flawless paragraph in a year and writing a complete, imperfect novel. The latter, the finished work, is what actually connects, teaches, and endures. So here's a question, a direct prompt from this ancient reminder. What idea, story, or project are you keeping inside that deserves to see the light before you run out of time? It doesn't have to be a grand opus. It could be a letter to a family member that holds your shared history, a small painting that captures a feeling you can't name, a business idea sketched on a napkin that you finally build a prototype for. Identify it, then make a pact with your limited time. Commit to the very first step of bringing it out, not someday, but in this season of your life. The work you leave behind isn't just what you made. It's evidence of how you chose to spend your precious, numbered days. Stoicism gets this reputation for being cold. But preparing for death is actually a deep kind of love. It's holding two things at once. You can love someone completely, and you can also accept with a quiet heart that your time with them is borrowed. That's the hardest use of Memento Mori, maybe the most compassionate one. It's not about numbing yourself to future pain. It's about using that awareness to love more fully right now. To be so present that when the parting comes, your main feeling isn't the shock of loss. It's a deep gratitude for what you were given. The Stoics called this the premeditation of future troubles. They said to contemplate losing the people you cherish, not to dwell in sorrow, but to do two specific things. First, to cherish them more vividly now. To see them clearly, to listen more deeply, to appreciate their simple presence as the miracle it is. Second, to prepare the mind, so if loss does come, it finds you with some acceptance already woven in. The shock is lessened, the ground doesn't vanish. Seneca wrote letters to friends who were grieving. He didn't tell them not to grieve, he acknowledged the tears, the ache, but then he gently guided their focus. He reminded them of the gift of the time they had. He asked them to turn memory into a place of grateful refuge, not a prison of pain. He wrote that we should anticipate the certainty of parting, not just the possibility. This, he believed, is how we arm ourselves against fortune's cruelest blows, by making peace with the natural order before it's demanded of us. So what does that look like daily? It's a subtle mental shift. When you're with someone you love, sharing a meal, watching a film, even in a quiet disagreement, you introduce a gentle thought. This is temporary. This moment is alone. Don't let it breed anxiety. Let it dissolve distraction. Let it pull you completely into the conversation, into the shared silence, into the reality of the person in front of you. It transforms ordinary time into sacred time because you know in your bones that it's finite. That awareness softens your tone. It makes you quicker to forgive a minor annoyance, more likely to speak the kind word you might have saved. It turns patience from a virtue into an act of stewardship for the time you have. So here's a prompt from that wisdom. Before today ends, reach out to one person you love, a parent, a child, a partner, a friend. Send a simple message of specific appreciation, not a generic thinking of you. A clear sentence, thank you for listening to me yesterday. I was remembering that time you helped me, and I'm so grateful you're in my life. I just wanted to say I appreciate your kindness. Do it with the understanding that this isn't just a nice gesture. It's a practice of loving without reserve, within the beautiful, heartbreaking limits of time. It's how you build a legacy of connection, one that no loss can ever truly take away. Someday is a thief. It takes the life you have now by telling you a better one is coming. We all have that list. Someday I'll travel. Someday I'll learn that. Someday I'll start that business, fix that relationship, write that book. We treat someday like a real place, like a destination we're headed toward. But Memento Mori asks a hard question. What if someday is a mirage? What if it's just a story we tell ourselves so that putting things off feels okay? The Stoics saw this clearly. They saw how people delay life itself. Seneca wrote about it. He said, we are always getting ready to live, but we never actually live. We put off our happiness. We postpone our virtue. We act like real life starts later when everything is perfect, and while we wait, our actual life, the only one we have, it slips away. He saw people saving their best effort, their real attention, for a tomorrow they imagined, and treating today like a warm-up, a rehearsal, but life doesn't have rehearsals. This is it. Every day you spend waiting for the perfect moment to begin is a day you didn't live the life you say you want. The fantasy of someday is powerful because it has no problems. In your mind, the trip is perfect, the new language comes easy, the career change is smooth, and everyone applauds. That perfect picture makes the messy, difficult first steps of today seem too small. So we wait for more money, more time, more confidence, for everything to line up, but those conditions almost never come, and you're left with a pile of empty tomorrows. The way out is to use the fact of your limit to break the illusion. If someday might not come, then the only logical time to build the life you want is now. Not the whole thing at once, just the next brick, the very next one. Take the common dream of travel. Someday I'll go to Italy. It's a lovely picture. But it stays a picture. Memento Mori asks, what can you do today to make it real? Maybe not buy the plane ticket if that's impossible, but take one 15-minute action. Research the region you'd visit, learn 3 phrases in Italian, look at a map and plan one imaginary day. That small action does something important. It moves the dream out of fantasy and into your actual life. It becomes a project you've started, not a wish you're saving. The same goes for any change you've put off. Want to learn an instrument? Your action today isn't to master a song. It's to watch one beginner lesson, to hold the instrument if you have one, and make one sound. Want to change careers? The action is to have one conversation, or to update one part of your resume. The size of the action doesn't matter. The momentum it creates is what matters. It proves to you that someday is a choice, and you can choose today instead. So here's a way to turn that thought into motion. Pick your single biggest someday dream. The one that feels most real in your mind. Hold it there. Now, break the spell of the distant future. Ask yourself, what's one concrete thing I can do in the next 15 minutes that would be a real step toward this? It has to be small. It has to be something you can do right after this. Commit to doing that one thing, not as a big start, but as a quiet statement. A statement that your life is not a waiting room for someday. It's the main event happening now, and you are finally walking onto the stage. Resilience comes from facing the heaviest weight first. If you lift the heaviest thing, everything else feels light. And that's the Stoic idea, the premeditation of hardships. It's mental training. You visit the hardest realities in your mind on purpose. You inoculate yourself, you build a baseline so when smaller troubles come, they don't knock you over, they feel manageable. Epictetus taught this. He told his students to prepare. Let death and exile and every terrible thing appear before your eyes every day, he said, especially death, and then you won't crave anything too much. You won't hold contemptible thoughts. The point wasn't fear, it was to remove surprise. If you've made peace with the largest, most certain event, then smaller disruptions lose their power. Nothing takes you by surprise because you've already sat with the possibility. That's why Memento Mori is the ultimate resilience training. It sets the outer boundary. And inside that boundary, all other troubles find their true scale. You can use this. When a stressor comes up, a work conflict, a money worry, a rejection, you pause. You compare its weight to the weight of your whole mortal journey. You place this problem on the timeline of your life. You see it as a single event in a finite story. Does this problem, seen from the whole story, deserve to dominate your peace? Usually, this act of scaling shrinks it. It becomes a difficulty to navigate, not a disaster. Think of a past difficulty that felt overwhelming, a failed project, a painful breakup, a time of uncertainty. From where you are now, how significant does it feel? The sharp edges have softened, the intense emotion has faded. It's a chapter, not the whole book. Memento Mori tries to give you that longer perspective now. It lets you borrow the calm of your future self today. So recall one past challenge that consumed you, sit with that memory, and gently see its diminished significance from here. What did that experience teach you about resilience, about what lasts? This isn't to minimize your past feelings. It's to see a truth you have endured before. You have perspective now you didn't have then, and you can build that perspective on purpose by regularly remembering the scale of your entire story. That's how you build steadiness, not by avoiding the thought of endings, but by making it your foundation. The most effective leaders remember their time is temporary. That awareness is a powerful antidote to ego. When you know your role is borrowed, your focus shifts. It shifts from building a personal monument to building something that serves. It kills vanity. It replaces the hunger for applause with a commitment to real work, lasting work. A leader who forgets their own end becomes a bottleneck. They hoard authority. They make themselves the center of every story. They chase short-term wins, wins that make them look good, even if it weakens the foundation for the future. But a leader who holds mortality lightly operates differently. They lead with a quiet humility. Their urgency isn't for their own glory. It's for the mission itself. Their primary question becomes how to use their limited time, how to make everyone around them more capable, more resilient, more empowered to continue the work without them. Marcus Aurelius practiced this. He was the emperor of Rome with absolute power, yet he constantly reminded himself of his mortality and his duty. He wrote notes to correct his own pride. He reflected that soon he would be resting, and all who praised or criticized him would be resting too. This wasn't a morbid fixation. It was a grounding wire. It kept his immense power in perspective. It directed his energy toward justice, toward his duty to the common good, and away from the petty dramas of the court. He saw his role not as a possession, but as a temporary stewardship, a service to be performed well for as long as he held it. You can see the contrast in modern settings. Picture two managers. The first is obsessed with personal credit. They take center stage in every success. They micromanage. They fear that any independent success from their team might dim their own spotlight. Their legacy is a collection of trophies with their name on them, and a team that feels diminished, dependent. Now picture the second. This leader sees their success entirely through the growth of their people. They mentor, they delegate real authority, they build systems and culture robust enough to function beautifully in their absence. They measure their impact not by the quarterly report they signed, but by the number of capable leaders they helped develop. When they eventually move on, what they leave behind isn't a void. It's a thriving, empowered team that continues to excel. That's a legacy built on Memento Mori. It understands that the leader's ultimate success is creating something that endures, something that flourishes beyond their own involvement. This principle applies far beyond a formal title. Leadership is an action, not a position. You lead in your sphere, in your family, your community, your circle of friends, your projects. The reflective prompt is this: how can you, in your current sphere, lead by making others better? Your lasting impact isn't what you did for people. It's what you enabled them to do for themselves. And for others, it could be the patience you show a colleague, teaching them a skill without condescension. It could be the confidence you instill in a child, encouraging them to solve their own problem. It could be the clear standards you set in a volunteer group, standards that raise everyone's performance. Each of these acts is a small stone in a legacy that doesn't bear your name but carries your influence forward. When you lead with the quiet knowledge that your time to influence is finite, you stop building castles in the sand. You start planting forests that will grow long after you've walked on. Accepting the ultimate loss, you find the ultimate freedom. That's the heart of Stoic inner freedom, what they called autarkeia. Self-sufficiency, not needing anything outside yourself to be at peace. And the way to that state goes straight through thinking about your own end. When you've really made peace with the one outcome you can't change, something strange happens. The smaller threats, the social pressures, the fears of loss, they just lose their grip. Their power to control your choices, it evaporates. Epictetus, born into hardship, understood this liberation. He said, "I must die, must I then die lamenting? I must be put in chains, must I then also lament? I must go into exile. Can anyone hinder me from going with smiles and cheerfulness and contentment?" He taught that we're only truly free when we desire nothing that others can take away. Your reputation, your property, your social standing, even your relationships, these are all on loan. They can be taken, but your character, your judgment, your integrity, your peace of mind, those are yours, and when your happiness is rooted there in what can't be taken, you become unshakable. You become free. Think about a common modern prison, the fear of what other people think. It dictates our clothing, our careers, our opinions in meetings, even our hobbies. We live constrained by an invisible jury, but what if that jury's worst verdict, social rejection, lost its sting? Because you've already accepted a far greater separation. This isn't about becoming reckless or rude. It's about acting from a deeper place of authenticity. Your choices begin to flow from your values, not from your fears. You see this in people who make bold changes after a personal wake-up call. The executive who leaves a lucrative, prestigious career to start a small farm or a nonprofit. From the outside, it looks like a loss, but from the inside, it's a declaration of freedom. They've weighed the social judgment, the potential financial instability, against the weight of a life unlived. And with the perspective of mortality, those external risks seem manageable. The essential thing, living in alignment with their soul, is no longer negotiable. Or the artist who finally shares their work despite a lifelong fear of criticism. They've internalized that obscurity, born from fear, is a quieter, more permanent kind of failure than any bad review. The review is an event, the silence is a sentence. By accepting that their time to contribute is finite, they break the lock of social anxiety. Their desire to offer their gift becomes stronger than their fear of how it's received. So here's a question, a direct line to that freedom. What would you do differently if you were truly unafraid of social judgment or failure? Not in theory, but in the concrete reality of your current life. Would you dress differently? Would you voice the unpopular but necessary opinion at work? Would you create something and let people see it? Would you pursue a connection your pride has blocked? The answer to that question isn't just a fantasy, it's a map to the parts of your life where you've traded your inner freedom for a false sense of external security. And with that map in hand, you can begin the real work of taking your territory back. Stoic Memento Mori and modern mindfulness are trying to get to the same place. The same awareness. One is an ancient philosophy, the other is a contemporary practice, but they arrive at the same point. Mindfulness is the training. It's noticing your breath, the feeling in your body, the thoughts moving through without judging them. It's observation, and Memento Mori is the reason. It's the philosophical why. This breath has a number. This sensation is unique. It won't come again. This moment of awareness is temporary. It's a gift. Mindfulness gives you the technique to be here. The Stoic idea gives that here its weight, its meaning. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He told himself to see the world fresh. To strip away the old stories, to see things as if for the first time or the last. He wrote about the banquet of life. He said not to rush through it. To savor each part, that's more than mindfulness. It's mindfulness with an understanding of impermanence. That's what makes it sacred, not just calming. You can bring these together in a simple meditation. Start with a few minutes of classic mindfulness. Find a comfortable seat, close your eyes, follow the rhythm of your breath. In and out, notice the cool air, the rise and fall of your chest. When your mind wanders, guide it back. This is anchoring in the now. Then, after a few minutes, add the Stoic layer. With your next inhale, hold this thought. This breath is alone. This life is a temporary gift. Don't force a feeling. Just let the idea sit there, alongside the physical sensation. Feel the air filling your lungs, knowing this function has an expiration date. This combination changes your attention. The mindfulness stops you from spiraling into anxiety about the future. The Memento Mori stops the mindfulness from becoming passive, casual. It charges the present moment with significance. Your focus deepens. Breathing becomes a conscious participation. In the fleeting wonder of being alive, here's an invitation to try. Set a timer for 1 minute. Sit quietly. For the first 30 seconds, just watch your breath. For the final 30 seconds, with each inhale, note this is precious. With each exhale, note this is passing. Just 1 minute, observe what arises. Not with judgment, with curiosity. Does the awareness of the limit make the breath feel more vivid, more immediate? That's the integration, where ancient wisdom and modern practice join. Guiding you not just to a calmer mind, but to a life fully inhabited, one conscious breath at a time. FOMO comes from forgetting you'll miss almost everything. That's the truth. Memento Mori doesn't say you can do it all. It says you can't, and in that, there's a different power, the power to choose what you won't miss. When you know your days are numbered, you stop chasing every trend, every invitation. That vague anxiety fades. You start picking with intention, because saying yes to one thing is saying no to another. Your time is the currency. You only have so much. Seneca saw this waste. He wrote that life is long enough if you know how to use it, but we're plagued by wanting to do everything. We get distracted by pursuits that belong to other people. We let our lives be stolen by commitments that aren't our path. He argued we don't lack time. We lack direction. We're pulled everywhere because we haven't decided where we want to go. That old insight cuts to the heart of modern FOMO, that anxious scrolling. The feeling everyone else has a better story. It comes from a scattered focus, from trying to live 1,000 potential lives instead of committing to the one you have. Memento Mori forces that commitment. It asks, if you could only have a handful of experiences before the end, what would they be? The answer becomes your filter. It turns FOMO from a passive anxiety into an active choice. Take a practical example. You're invited to a popular event. It sounds fun. Everyone will be there. But it's the same night you plan to work on a personal project or to have a quiet evening with family. Surface-level FOMO says you'll miss the connection, the photos. But the deeper awareness asks a better question. Which experience, looking back from the end of your life, will you be more grateful you chose? The noisy party you attended out of obligation? Or the project that expressed a piece of your soul, the crowded room or the deep conversation? Choosing the latter isn't a loss, it's a declaration. It's saying, I know what matters. I'm willing to miss other good things to honor it. That's the cure, not having everything but loving what you've chosen. So here's a prompt, a practical tool. Take a moment. Identify your top 2 priorities for this month. Not tasks, values in action. Maybe deepening a relationship, or progress on a creative goal, or your physical well-being. Write them down. Now look at your calendar, your to-do list, the opportunities coming. Find one good invitation, one productive task, one worthwhile commitment that actually pulls you away from those top 2 priorities. Your practice is to consciously, politely decline it. Frame that no not as a rejection, but as a profound yes. A yes to the life you're building with the limited, precious time you have. The ultimate hardship is something we don't get to choose, but we can train for it. The Stoics trained for life's inevitable hardships by choosing small difficulties. That's the reason. Mortality is the reason. This practice is called voluntary discomfort. It's a deliberate step into a minor challenge. temporary, not for punishment, for perspective, for strength. The goal is to build an inner muscle, a muscle that lets you face larger trials, the uninvited ones, without crumbling. It's a rehearsal for loss, a way to make sure you never take the basic gifts for granted. Warmth, food, health, security. Because when you remember these are temporary loans, you want to appreciate them fully. And one way to appreciate warmth is to know what it's like to be cold. On purpose, Seneca practiced this. He had wealth, status, but periodically he would live in simple poverty for a few days, wear rough clothing, eat plain food, sleep on a hard bed. He wrote that he did this to prove to himself that the conditions he feared were endurable. He was testing his own self-sufficiency. He wanted to know that his peace didn't depend on silk sheets or a full pantry, that it was rooted in his character, something no external condition could touch. He was preparing his mind, so if fortune ever took those comforts away, it wouldn't feel like a catastrophe. It would feel like a return to a familiar state. A state he knew he could handle. This is the link to Memento Mori. By voluntarily experiencing slight hardship, you're practicing for the ultimate letting go. You're building the resilience you will need, not just for major crises, but for the 1,000 small losses and discomforts that make up a human life. The practice makes you anti-fragile. It doesn't just help you endure difficulty, it helps you grow from it. So what does this look like now in a safe context? It's not about self-harm or extreme deprivation. It's about small, conscious choices that stretch your comfort zone gently. It could be taking a cooler shower than usual. For the last 30 seconds, you turn the temperature down, you feel the shock, and you practice breathing through it. You practice accepting a sensation you didn't choose. You observe your mind's resistance and you choose to stay. That's the training. It could be skipping a single meal, not for dieting, but for the mental clarity. To feel the pangs of hunger and realize they are just sensations. They don't control you, you are separate from them. You can observe them with curiosity. It could be a walk in cold weather without your heaviest coat, to feel the bite of the air and know it's temporary, to come back inside and feel the profound gratitude for simple shelter. For the warmth that was always there, waiting. These acts are small, but their effect is deep. They rewire your relationship with comfort. They teach you that you are more capable, more resilient than your desire for ease believes. So here's a direct challenge, a way to move from idea to experience. Tomorrow, choose one small, safe, voluntary discomfort. Make it simple, make it manageable. Perhaps you drink your morning coffee black without sweetener. Perhaps you leave your phone in another room for 1 hour. Perhaps you take the stairs instead of the elevator. As you do it, pay attention, not to the discomfort itself, but to your mind's reaction. Notice the urge to quit. Notice the stories it tells you. And then notice the quiet strength that emerges when you choose to continue. That strength is the point. It's the resilience you are building, brick by tiny brick, for a life that knows its limits, and therefore lives without fear of them. Every minute you spend scrolling is a minute of your life, and that life is finite. Memento Mori. It's the ultimate tool for digital wellness. Our phones, our screens, they give us endless connection, endless information. But they cost something, a currency we forget we're spending, our time, and that time is irreplaceable. The Stoics warned about this, wasting life on trivial things. On the opinions of the crowd, on empty entertainment, it leaves the soul hungry. If Seneca walked into a modern home, he wouldn't see gladiator games. He'd see the glow of screens, he'd see the same dynamic, hours vanishing into a void of passive consumption, time, the one resource you can never earn more of, traded away. Traded for a fleeting hit of novelty. This isn't about abandoning technology, it's about using it with fierce intention, because your days are numbered. Mortality becomes a filter for your digital life. It asks one simple question: does this device serve my life, or is it a tool I use to avoid living it? The ancient warning fits perfectly today. Epictetus said, "If you seek truth, you will not seek to gain a victory by every possible means." He was talking about arguments. But you can see it now in online debates, how much of our digital engagement is just that, a quest for trivial victory, a need to be right in a comments section. To craft the perfect rebuttal to a stranger, that time, that mental energy, it's a piece of your life. When you weigh it against your entire journey, does that victory matter? Marcus Aurelius wrote about avoiding busy work, the business of the masses. He wrote about not getting swept up in endless talk. Today, that endless talk is the infinite scroll. The notification stream, it's designed to capture your attention, not to enrich it. Memento Mori hands you back the power of choice. It asks you to look at your screen time report not as a measure of use, but as a ledger. A ledger of your life. How many hours of your one precious life did you exchange for that? Was it a fair trade? Here's a practical thing, a modern ritual. Try a Memento Mori phone check. The next time you feel that unconscious urge to unlock your device, pause. Before your thumb touches the screen, ask one question. Is this how I want to spend the next piece of my life? That tiny pause, that moment of conscious choice, it breaks the autopilot. It creates a space between the impulse and the action. And in that space, you remember you have agency. You might still choose to check the weather or message a friend, but now it's a deliberate act aligned with a purpose. Not a reflex, not an escape from boredom or discomfort. You might even decide to put the phone down and look out the window instead, to have a single, uninterrupted thought. To feel the sun on your skin for just 30 seconds, that reclaimed moment, however small, is a victory. It's you taking back a fragment of your finite attention and investing it directly in the experience of being alive. So here's a reflective prompt, a way to turn awareness into action. Look back at your screen time from yesterday. Don't judge it, just observe it as data. Now identify one 30-minute block, a period where your usage felt most passive, most automatic, least connected to anything you truly value. Your challenge is to reclaim that same 30 minutes today or tomorrow. Plan for it. Decide in advance what you'll do with that half hour of your life instead. Will you take a walk without your phone? Read a few pages of a book that challenges you? Have a focused conversation with someone in your home? The activity itself matters less than the intention behind it. You are practicing the art of conscious allocation. You are auditing your life's most precious resource and choosing with clear eyes where to invest it next. This is how an ancient meditation on mortality becomes a practical tool for living with more presence and less distraction in the world we actually inhabit. From the cosmos, your life and death are just a wave, rising and falling in a huge ocean. It's natural, it's beautiful, and it's temporary. That's the Stoic view. The ultimate one, they called it cosmic indifference, but it's not cold. It's more like the serene, neutral rhythm of nature itself. The Stoics saw a rational universe. An interconnected one, they called it the logos, a grand system, and everything in it, from a blade of grass to a human life, follows natural cycles. Growth, then flourishing, then decay and return. Your existence is part of that cycle, so is your end. In this view, your death isn't a personal tragedy. It's the necessary, logical conclusion of your birth. It's the moment your borrowed materials get returned. The atoms, the energy, the substance that was you for a while. It all goes back to the universe to be reorganized, to become part of new life, new stories, new forms. That's the law of dissolution, and to fight it is to fight reality itself. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this. In his private journal, he wrote that you functioned as a part of something. You will vanish into what produced you, or be changed to resume the cycle. He said being angry or fearful about this is irrational as a fig tree being angry about producing figs, or autumn being sad that leaves have to fall. The leaf doesn't cling to the branch in terror. It lets go because its falling isn't an error. It's the tree's way of conserving life through the winter. It's part of the forest's rhythm. That fallen leaf will decompose. It will nourish the soil. It will help feed the roots of the tree it fell from, making way for new leaves in the spring. Your life is that leaf, your death is that fall, and your legacy, the energy of what you did and who you were, that's the nourishment you leave in the soil. The soil of the human community, this cosmic perspective shrinks the personal drama. It doesn't erase the beauty of your individual story. It sets it inside a story so vast your fear has no place to stand. When you feel the terror of your own ending, you're seeing it from the ground level, from inside the story. The cosmic view asks you to rise above, to see from the mountaintop. To watch the endless procession, generations, civilizations, species, all coming and going in their turn. In that grand procession, your arrival and your departure are both natural events. Neither good nor bad in the cosmic sense, simply true. That's the foundation for serene acceptance, not resignation, a profound alignment with what is. So here's a simple practice, a way to touch this. Sometime today, find a quiet moment outside, or just look up at the sky through a window, watch the clouds moving, the vastness of the space beyond, or watch a tree, its branches swaying. For a few minutes, let your awareness expand. See yourself not as a separate entity facing an end, but as a temporary expression of this immense living system. You are a conscious piece of the universe observing itself. Your breath is part of the atmosphere. Your body is made of elements forged in stars. Your thoughts are a flicker of the same cosmic intelligence, the one that spins galaxies and guides the seasons. In that connected state, ask yourself, does my individual end feel like a catastrophe here, or does it feel like a return, a homecoming to the source? The place all things come from and all things go back to. This contemplation doesn't make your life small. It makes your participation sacred. It turns your finite journey into a conscious note. A note in an eternal song, and in that you might find a peace that nothing, not even the thought of ending, can ever shake. Memento Mori, it starts with urgency. That jolt, it pulls you from procrastination into action, then it sharpens into clarity. It filters out the trivial noise so you can see what matters most. And it deepens into presence, anchoring you in the vivid reality of the current moment. It culminates in freedom, liberating you from the petty fears and social pressures that once dictated your choices. This practice isn't a morbid fixation. It's a philosophical tool for unlocking a life that's more focused, more vibrant, more aligned with your deepest virtues. Seneca captured this. He wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough. It's been given to us in generous measure for accomplishing the greatest things, if the whole of it is well invested. But when it's wasted, when it's spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize it has passed away before we knew it was passing." So it is, we are not given a short life, but we make it short. We are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it. His point stands. The goal isn't merely to exist for a long time. It's to live fully for the time you have, to invest your days, not just spend them. Look back over the ideas, from the daily rituals to the cosmic perspective. From curing procrastination to fostering courage, which single insight resonated most? Was it treating time as a finite currency, using an ending to appreciate a relationship? The mental shift that turns anxiety into action. Identify that one point and make it practical. In the coming week, how will you apply it? Choose one specific small action. A morning pause to acknowledge the gift of the day, a deliberate no to a distraction, a courageous yes to a conversation you've delayed. This is how wisdom moves from thought to lived experience. One conscious choice at a time.